You see, when God chooses you, he doesn't just place you in a crowd, he calls you out of it. And sometimes that calling feels more like a separation than a celebration. You start to notice that the things that used to excite you no longer move you. The conversations that once entertained you now drain you. The places that once made you feel alive suddenly feel too small for the vision he's placed inside of you. And that's when it starts to hurt, because you realize you're changing, but the people around you may not understand why. Being chosen isn't glamorous, it's weighty. It's carrying an invisible responsibility that few people can see, but that your spirit can't ignore. You can feel when God is shifting something inside of you, even when you can't explain it. You can sense when he's calling you to higher ground. But higher always means leaving something or someone behind. And that's where the loneliness begins to creep in, because you want to belong, but you also know you can't blend in anymore. There's a cost to being chosen. People often romanticize purpose like it's this beautiful journey of endless light and applause. But in reality, it's often filled with quiet nights, unanswered prayers, and moments when you ask God, why me? Not in pride, but in pain. Why did you pick me for this? Why does it have to hurt this much? Because when you're chosen, you don't get to live ordinary. You don't get to settle. You don't get to ignore the call when it whispers in your spirit. You're required to grow, and growth rarely feels comfortable. Sometimes God isolates you, not because he's punishing you, but because he's protecting what's being developed within you. Think about a seed. It has to be buried before it can grow. It has to sit in the dark, unseen and uncelebrated, while transformation happens underground. That's how chosen ones are shaped. You may feel buried, but you're actually being planted. You may feel forgotten, but you're being prepared. And when the time is right, what's been growing in secret will bloom in sight. But that season of isolation can be confusing. You'll start wondering where everyone went. People you thought would walk with you may fade away. Some will misunderstand your silence. Others will misread your growth. And in those moments, you'll have to learn to be okay with being misunderstood, because chosen ones don't need validation. They need obedience. God didn't call you to be understood by everyone. He called you to be faithful to him. The truth is, sometimes the loneliness you feel is not because people have abandoned you. It's because God has elevated you. And elevation always changes perspective. The higher you go, the smaller certain things appear. Certain relationships, habits, and distractions that once held your attention won't fit the altitude of your calling. That doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It means your purpose demands focus. You can't carry everyone into your next season. Some people were meant for your history, not your destiny. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to be set apart. It hurts to walk into rooms where you don't quite fit anymore. It hurts to have a heart that feels too deep, too sensitive, too aware. But that sensitivity is your gift. That awareness is your anointing. The chosen ones feel things others ignore because they're meant to heal things others overlook. You carry a light that was never meant to blend in. So of course it feels heavy sometimes. Light always exposes what's hidden. Don't confuse being set apart with being forgotten. God hasn't overlooked you. He's just preparing you for something greater than your surroundings can currently hold. You might feel like nothing is moving, but in the spirit, everything is shifting. He's aligning people, opportunities, and timing. But he needs you to stay still long enough to be shaped. If you rush the process, you'll enter your purpose unprepared. An unprepared purpose can become destruction. So let him work on you. Let him refine you. Let him prune what's unnecessary so that what's essential can grow strong. There's beauty in being chosen, but it's a beauty often born from brokenness, because it's in those lonely nights when your tears hit the pillow and your heart aches for understanding that you begin to hear his voice clearer than ever. He speaks in the stillness. He whispers in the spaces where everyone else is silent. He says, I know it hurts, but I'm here. I know you feel alone, but I'm shaping you for something that requires solitude. And when you begin to trust that voice, when you begin to see your loneliness not as rejection, but as redirection, everything changes. You'll stop asking, why am I alone? And start declaring, I'm being prepared. You'll stop chasing crowds and start cherishing quiet. You'll stop craving applause and start valuing peace, because chosen ones eventually realize that the isolation was never about punishment. It was about intimacy. God wanted your attention. He wanted your heart. He wanted you whole. And when the time comes, when you finally step into what he's been preparing you for, you'll look back on that lonely season and realize it was never loneliness at all. It was alignment. It was purpose in disguise. It was the making of the chosen one you were always meant to become. Because being chosen may feel lonely, but it's never empty. It's holy. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that before God builds you, he will first allow you to be broken. And that breaking doesn't always come from your enemies. Sometimes it comes from the very things you prayed for. The relationship you thought would last forever, the opportunity you believed was the answer to your prayers, the season you thought was supposed to elevate you, suddenly it all falls apart. And in that moment, it feels like your whole world is collapsing. You start questioning yourself, questioning your faith, questioning God's timing. You wonder, if I'm chosen, why does it hurt this bad? If God's hand is on me, why does my heart feel so shattered? But what you don't realize in those moments is that breaking isn't the end. It's the beginning. The breaking is where the building begins. Because when God is about to construct something great in your life, he doesn't build on unstable foundations. He has to tear down everything that was built on pride, fear, insecurity, or approval. He has to strip away what was never meant to hold you, so that when he raises you up again, you'll stand on something unshakable. You see, the breaking exposes what the blessings hid. It reveals the parts of you that look strong in public but were fragile in private. It's easy to seem whole when everything is working, but when life cracks open, that's when the truth comes out. And God allows that breaking because he loves you too much to let you stay in pieces that pretend to be whole. He wants the real you, not the polished, performative version, but the raw, surrendered, honest version who says, God, I don't understand, but I still trust you. And that kind of trust can only be birthed in brokenness. Because when you're broken, you stop depending on your own strength. You stop trying to fix what only faith can heal. You stop performing and start praying differently. The prayers shift from Lord, change them to Lord, change me. You stop asking for escape and start asking for endurance. That's when you know God is rebuilding you, when your focus moves from what you lost to what he's teaching you. The breaking also detoxes your spirit. It cleanses your motives, your attachments, your habits. It's not that God wants to hurt you, it's that he wants to free you. Because sometimes you don't even realize how tied you are to what's been holding you back until it's gone. And though your heart may ache, your soul begins to breathe again. It's like when a bone breaks, it has to be set properly to heal right. And once it does, that part becomes stronger than it was before. That's what God is doing in your spirit. He's setting you back in alignment so you can carry what's next without collapsing under the weight of it. But in the process, the pain feels unbearable. You'll cry and pray and wonder if he's even listening. You'll have nights where you sit in silence, trying to piece yourself together while everything inside of you feels like dust. Yet, in that very dust, something sacred is forming. Because when God formed humanity, he did it from dust. So maybe the reason you feel like everything has fallen apart is because he's creating something new out of what's been broken. There's purpose in your pain, even if you can't see it yet. The breaking may look like loss, but it's actually making room. God has to empty your hands of what's temporary so he can fill them with what's eternal. You can't carry both the old and the new. You can't hold on to your comfort and expect transformation. So he breaks what you've been leaning on to show you that he's the only foundation that won't fail. And I know it doesn't make sense while you're in it. I know it feels cruel to be broken when all you wanted was to be whole, but God's definition of wholeness doesn't look like the world's. Wholeness in God means dependence, not perfection. It means surrender, not strength. It means learning that sometimes the blessing is not in what he gives, but in what he takes away. Because what he removes often reveals what he intends to restore differently. So when you're in that season where it feels like everything is falling apart, don't curse the breaking. Don't run from it. Let it do its work. Let it humble you. Let it heal you. Let it teach you who you really are without all the noise. Because one day you'll look back and realize that what felt like the end was actually the rebirth of everything beautiful within you. You'll realize that God wasn't trying to destroy you. He was trying to deliver you from everything that couldn't go with you. The breaking season will test your patience, your faith, and your identity. But when it's over, you won't just come out better. You'll come out built with wisdom, built with grace, built with compassion, built with the kind of strength that can't be shaken by storms because it was forged in fire. You'll carry a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances and a faith that doesn't waver under pressure. So if you're feeling broken right now, don't lose hope. The pieces aren't the end of your story. They're the beginning of your becoming. God is still working. He's not done with you. And when he's finished, you'll realize that the breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was the process he used to make you whole. There's a season in every chosen one's life where everything goes quiet, not because you've done something wrong, not because God has forgotten you, but because he's growing you in silence. It's the kind of season where prayers seem to echo back unanswered, where your plans stop making sense, and where your spirit knows something is shifting even though nothing around you looks different. You wake up, go through the motions, try to stay faithful, but inside it feels like God has pressed pause on everything. That silence is uncomfortable. It makes you question yourself, your calling, your direction. But what you don't see is that silence is not absence, it's strategy. When God is preparing someone for something big, he often hides them first. The same way he hid Moses in the desert, David in the fields, Joseph in the prison, and Jesus in obscurity before the miracles began. Every chosen one has a silent season, because before you can be revealed, you have to be refined. Before you can lead publicly, you have to learn privately. The silent season is where God detoxes your soul from the noise of the world so you can finally hear his voice without distortion. In the silence, there's no crowd to clap for you, no spotlight to feed your confidence, no distraction to mask your insecurity. It's just you and God, face to face, heart to heart. And that's where he starts teaching you who you really are. Because sometimes the noise of success, validation, or relationships can drown out your identity. You start confusing what you do with who you are. You start defining yourself by applause, opportunities, and attention. But in the silence, God strips all that away so you can remember that your worth was never in what you produced. It was in who he created you to be. And it hurts because silence feels like stillness, and stillness feels like stagnation. You start to wonder if you've missed your moment. But what looks like nothing is actually where everything is happening. Just like a seed in the soil, when you bury it, it disappears from sight. You can't see its progress, but under the surface, it's breaking open, taking root, and preparing to rise. That's what God is doing with you. You think you're stuck, but you're sprouting. You think you're buried, but you're being built. The silent season is where strength is developed without recognition. It's where discipline is born, where humility takes root, and where faith grows deep enough to sustain what's coming next. Because when the spotlight comes, it's too late to develop character. You can't build foundation after elevation. It has to come first. That's why God hides you. He's protecting you from being seen too soon. Because sometimes Premature exposure can destroy what patience was meant to perfect. And if you're honest, you'll admit there are moments in that quiet place where you want to give up, moments where you scroll through other people's lives and wonder why they seem to be thriving while you're still waiting. But remember, not everything that shines is stable. Some people rise fast because they weren't rooted deep. Don't envy what isn't built to last. God is taking his time with you because he's doing something permanent, and permanent things take patience. You're learning in this silent season to find contentment without clarity, to trust without details, to obey without applause. That's spiritual maturity. To serve God when you don't see the result, to keep showing up when nobody notices, to keep sowing when there's no harvest yet. Because faith isn't proven when everything's happening. It's proven when nothing is. And you might not realize it, but the silence is shaping your sensitivity. You're learning to hear God in whispers, not shouts. You're learning to discern his presence in stillness, not chaos. Because if you can find him in silence, you'll recognize him anywhere. That's why he quiets your world, so he can awaken your spirit. He wants you to depend on his voice, not the noise around you. There's also a beauty in the hidden work that no one talks about. When nobody's watching, when nobody's applauding, when nobody's validating you, that's where authenticity is born. You're not performing, you're becoming. You're not being praised, you're being processed. You're not being overlooked, you're being overseen by the one who sees all. Heaven is watching what the world ignores. And when the time is right, the same God who hid you will reveal you. But don't rush the silence. Don't force doors open that God closed for your protection. Some of you are in seasons where it feels like everything has slowed down, but what if God slowed you down because he knew what was ahead could destroy you if you got there too fast? Sometimes his not yet is actually his mercy. Sometimes the waiting is his way of making sure you're ready to handle what you've been praying for. So instead of despising the quiet, start using it. Read more. Pray deeper. Heal what you've been avoiding. Grow roots in the unseen. Because when the rain finally comes, you won't just sprout, you'll flourish. And those who once overlooked you will see that the silence wasn't empty, it was sacred. It was God's way of growing what the world couldn't see, preparing what the world couldn't rush, and forming in you what the noise could never teach. You may feel hidden right now, but hidden doesn't mean forgotten. It means chosen for something that takes time. And when God brings you out of that silent season, you'll understand why he had to quiet everything else first. Because only in silence could he make your spirit loud enough to hear his next instruction. The silent season isn't punishment, it's preparation. Purpose sounds beautiful until you realize the price that comes with it. Everybody wants to be chosen, but nobody wants to feel the fire that comes with being called. Because purpose is not just about destiny, it's about dying to who you were so you can become who God created you to be. And that death isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the slow breaking of pride, the stripping of comfort, the letting go of what you thought your life would look like. It's realizing that what you prayed for might not come in the package you expected, and what you lost might actually be what's saving you. Purpose is never painless because transformation is never tidy. When you carry purpose, you also carry weight. It's the invisible pressure of knowing there's something greater on your life, something that demands more from you than others can understand. People may look at you and think you're strong, but what they don't see is this spiritual warfare that comes with being chosen. The sleepless nights where you question if you're built for this. The moments where you're tempted to walk away from everything just to feel normal again. Purpose doesn't come wrapped in peace, it's often wrapped in fire. But that fire doesn't come to burn you, it comes to purify you. God uses the fire of trials, betrayal, and disappointment to refine the chosen ones. Because what he places in you has to be strong enough to survive pressure. You can't carry purpose that changes others if you haven't been changed yourself. You can't preach freedom if you've never walked through chains. You can't speak of faith if yours has never been tested. So he allows you to walk through things that don't make sense, not to break you, but to burn away everything that can't go with you. Every time you lose something, he's showing you what's temporary. Every time someone walks away, he's reminding you that your purpose is not attached to people's presence, but to his promise. The pain of purpose comes from the pull between your humanity and your calling. One side of you wants to rest, to stop fighting, to just exist. But the other side knows you can't quit because there's something inside you that refuses to die. You can't be comfortable in mediocrity because your spirit won't let you settle. You can't silence your conviction just to make people like you. And that tension, that inner battle, is what every chosen one feels, because purpose is not convenient. It's not built to fit around your plans. It's designed to disrupt them. And sometimes that disruption feels like loss. You lose people, positions, plans, things that made you feel secure. You might even lose the version of yourself that once made sense. But purpose demands evolution. God will let certain things collapse so he can reveal the foundation that was never meant to hold you. And yes, it hurts to watch things fall apart. It hurts when doors close that you prayed would open. It hurts when the people you helped are the first ones to forget you. But pain doesn't mean you're out of God's will. Sometimes it's the proof that you're walking in it. Because purpose will always require pressure. Pressure to grow, pressure to surrender, pressure to keep moving when you'd rather stay still. There are moments when you'll cry out and say, God, I can't do this. And he'll whisper, you're not supposed to. I'm doing it through you. That's the beauty of purpose. It brings you to the end of yourself so you can finally depend on him fully. You start realizing that the same fire that feels like it's consuming you is actually refining you. You're being purified, not punished. You're being molded into someone who can carry the glory without letting pride destroy you. Because untested purpose is dangerous. It breeds arrogance. But tested purpose breeds humility, and that humility becomes your strength. It's what allows you to walk through storms with peace. It's what keeps you kind when others are cruel. It's what makes you keep serving when no one says thank you. The pain that was meant to break you becomes the foundation that builds you. You start to see purpose differently. It's no longer about success or recognition. It's about obedience. It's about doing what God said, even when it doesn't make sense. It's about trusting that every delay, every detour, every disappointment is still a part of his divine direction. You may feel like you're walking through fire right now, but that fire has an assignment. It's burning off your fear. It's consuming your doubt. It's teaching you to trust him in ways you never have before. You won't come out of this the same. You'll come out purified, lighter, stronger, because fire doesn't just destroy, it reveals what's indestructible. And that's what God is doing in you, proving that what he placed inside, you can't be shaken by what's happening around you. So don't run from the pain of your purpose. Don't try to escape the process. Let the fire do its work. Let it refine your faith, deepen your character, and strip away every false comfort. Because when the flames die down and the smoke clears, what will remain is the version of you that was always meant to rise, not fragile, not fearful, but forged in the fire and ready for what's next. The pain of purpose is not punishment, it's preparation for glory. There comes a point in every chosen one's journey where you stand at the crossroads between calling and comfort. One path looks familiar, easy, predictable, the one that doesn't require much change. The other feels uncertain, stretching, and costly, the one that leads to purpose. And though every part of you longs for peace, there's a deeper part that knows you can't go back to who you were. Once you've heard the call, comfort will never fit the same. You can try to settle, but something inside of you will always remind you that you were created for more. That's the tension of being chosen. The world offers comfort, but God calls you to courage. And courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a quiet trembling yes in the middle of your fear. You say yes even when it costs you relationships. You say yes even when it leaves you misunderstood. You say yes even when it means walking away from the familiar into the unknown. Because deep down, you realize that staying comfortable is more dangerous than stepping into the uncertain. Comfort may keep you safe, but it also keeps you small. God never calls you to what's convenient. He calls you to what transforms you. And transformation always comes with tension. The things that once satisfied you no longer do. The circles that once felt like home now feel too tight for your spirit. You start to outgrow conversations, environments, even habits that no longer align with who you're becoming. And it's hard because part of you wants to stay connected to what feels familiar, but purpose requires separation. You can't walk fully into what's next while clinging to what's comfortable. There are moments where that choice feels like loss. You'll look around and see others who chose comfort, and they look happy, stable, untouched by the storms you're walking through. But don't mistake comfort for peace. Peace comes from alignment, not avoidance. The peace that lasts doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from obeying God even when it hurts. True peace is born in surrender, not safety. The reason so many people miss their calling is because they get trapped in comfort. They choose what's easy over what's eternal. They chase applause over assignment. They follow feelings over faith. But chosen ones can't settle there. You'll try to, and it won't work. God will disturb your comfort until you move. He'll let what used to fulfill you lose its flavor. He'll close doors that once made sense, not because he's punishing you, but because he refuses to let you shrink into spaces that can't hold your purpose. And it's not that comfort is always wrong. It's just that it's temporary. If you stay in it too long, it turns into complacency. And complacency kills calling. The moment you stop stretching, you start settling. And chosen ones weren't designed to settle. You were created to grow, to lead, to impact, to bring light into dark places. But that kind of calling comes with discomfort. It asks you to forgive when you'd rather hold a grudge, to stay when you'd rather run, to believe when you'd rather doubt. Purpose doesn't wait for your feelings to align. It moves through your faith. Sometimes you'll have to walk away from comfort before you even see the promise. That's the hardest part, leaving before you know where you're going. Abraham had to do it. He left his home without knowing his destination. God told him, go, and he went. That's what faith looks like. Walking without full instructions, trusting that if God told you to move, then the next step will make sense when it's time. The chosen ones learn to live by revelation, not reassurance. You won't always have clarity, but you will have confirmation. And sometimes that confirmation only comes after obedience. So when God calls you out of comfort, don't be afraid of the unfamiliar. The unknown is often the birthplace of miracles. What feels like a wilderness now will one day be the very testimony that strengthens someone else. Every time you choose calling over comfort, you're planting seeds for someone else's breakthrough. You're showing that obedience is worth the cost. But let's be honest, the cost is real. You'll lose people who don't understand why you've changed. You'll lose habits that once numbed the pain, but now feel empty. You'll lose parts of yourself that were built for survival but can't live in purpose. Yet everything you lose in comfort, God replaces with conviction. Everything that leaves, he fills with strength, wisdom, and clarity. And when you look back, you'll realize that what felt like loss was really liberation. God never removes without replacing. He never calls you out of something unless he's calling you into something better. The tension between calling and comfort isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to clarify you. It shows you what truly matters. It separates your desires from your distractions. It pushes you closer to the version of yourself that walks in power instead of fear. So, if you're standing in that space where comfort is calling you one way and purpose is pulling you another, remember this: Your calling will always cost you something, but it will never cost you more than staying stuck. You were not created to live a small, safe life. You were created to walk by faith, to step into the unknown, to trust that God will meet you where your comfort ends. Don't fear the discomfort. Embrace it, because that's where growth happens. That's where miracles are born. That's where calling begins to breathe. The battle between calling and comfort will always exist, but the victory belongs to those who choose faith over fear. There comes a moment when everything you've endured starts to make sense. The tears, the loneliness, the rejection, the nights you cried asking God why it had to hurt so much. Suddenly, you begin to see that none of it was wasted. Every season of breaking was preparing you for a season of becoming. Every wound that once felt like a punishment was actually a doorway to purpose. God was never trying to destroy you. He was building you through the breaking. And now, as you start to rise, you realize that the same pain that once made you feel disqualified is the very thing that gives your purpose power. The glory after the breaking isn't just about what you gain, it's about who you've become. Because when you've been through the fire and survive, you don't just come out shining, you come out transformed. The same person who once doubted now walks with unshakable faith. The same voice that once trembled now speaks with authority. The same heart that once bled from betrayal now beats with compassion. The breaking made you tender where life tried to make you bitter. It gave you eyes to see others' pain, ears to hear their silent cries, and words to lift those who are still where you once were. And that's the beauty of God's restoration. He doesn't just heal you to make you whole, He heals you to make you a healer. The glory after the breaking is that your story becomes someone else's survival guide. You begin to realize that your scars are not shameful, they're sacred. They tell the story of a God who stayed when everything else left. They tell the story of grace that covered you when you couldn't cover yourself. You no longer hide the parts that broke you because now you see that they're the very places His light shines through. When God restores you, He doesn't put you back together the way you were before. He rebuilds you stronger, wiser, softer, and more aligned with your purpose. The restoration doesn't erase the pain, it redeems it. What used to bring tears now brings testimony. What once was confusion now brings clarity. You can look back at the very things that tried to destroy you and thank God for them because they became the soil where your strength grew. That's the kind of transformation only God can do, turning pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom, and brokenness into beauty. But that restoration doesn't happen overnight. There's a process to the glory. You have to walk through your healing one layer at a time. You have to face the parts of you that were shaped by survival and allow God to reshape them for peace. You have to let go of bitterness, of anger, of the urge to prove your worth to those who couldn't see it. Because the glory after the breaking requires surrender, the kind that says, God, I trust you with what broke me. I trust you to make something beautiful out of what hurt. And He will. He always does. Because God never wastes pain. He's the kind of artist who uses every shade, every shadow, every scar to paint a masterpiece. The moments that made you cry are the same ones that now give depth to your strength. The people who walked away created the space for divine connections to walk in. The seasons that felt empty became the ground where purpose could finally take root. You begin to see that nothing was random. Every loss, every detour, every heartbreak was a step toward healing. And as you rise from what once buried you, there's a new kind of confidence that settles in your spirit, not the kind that comes from pride, but the kind that comes from peace. You no longer need to prove anything, you simply are. You walk differently because you've been through the kind of storms that teach you how to stand. You speak differently because you know what it's like to have no voice and still survive. You love differently because you've seen what grace looks like up close. The breaking didn't weaken you, it refined you. There's a power that comes from being rebuilt by God. It's a quiet, steady kind of power that doesn't need validation or visibility. You don't chase opportunities anymore. They begin to find you because you carry authenticity. You don't fear rejection because you've learned that being chosen by God is enough. You don't run from challenges because you've realized that pressure is proof of purpose. And when people see your strength, they might admire it, but they'll never fully understand that it was born from battles they didn't see. And maybe that's the real glory, not that you made it out looking perfect, but that you made it out still believing, still loving, still standing. That's the evidence of divine restoration. You could have let the pain harden you, but you chose to let it humble you. You could have let the loneliness break you, but you chose to let it build you. You could have turned your back on faith, but you chose to trust that there had to be meaning behind the madness, and now you're walking proof that there is. The glory after the breaking is not about returning to who you were. It's about stepping fully into who you were always meant to be. You don't just survive, you shine. You don't just exist, you inspire. You don't just carry wounds, you carry wisdom. And everything that once made you feel broken now becomes the reason someone else finds the courage to heal. Because the glory after the breaking isn't about what was lost, it's about what was found in the ruins: faith, strength, purpose, and a peace that can't be taken away.